Hey, welcome, and I apologize for being a little bit late. I just got off the phone with Ray Bentley, who can't make it today, but we are going to do an almost daily Dave. I haven't done one of those in a little while, either tomorrow or Wednesday, and I'll keep you posted, and I'll put it on both of my pages, my Nooner page and my regular Facebook page. So Ray sends his apologies. He had a scheduling conflict that didn't become aware until just a few minutes ago. He was going to try to do it on his phone, and that just won't work in this format. It'll end up not being pretty at all, and I want you to hear what he has to say. So we'll get to Ray again within 24 or 48 hours. We will take care of it. You have my word on that. So again, sorry about that, but that's just the way it's going to be. So I'm here to talk about the Super Bowl, and I'm here to talk about, as a matter of fact, this actually gives me a little bit more freedom to talk about something that I don't know why is bothering me as much as it is, but it's us. And, you know, I like to stay in touch with what people are saying about the game, the entertainment, the commercials, but it is getting tiring, the constant negativity. Those of you who know me are now throwing something at your computers or phones going, you complaining about negativity? You, Mr. Sunshine? Yes, me. Now, some of it's joking, of course, but I want to congratulate those of you in the AARP crowd, and I am in that crowd, for becoming your mom and dad. You done it. You've achieved it. And it took the weekend, apparently, to bring that out in you. The entertainer the weekend, not Friday through Sunday. Don't know why people were so upset. But I did notice a common thread between the people who, at least on my Facebook page, were complaining the most. They're old. But there's another common thread, but I really don't want to go down that door. So I posted last night on Facebook after just reading, as Howard Cosell once said, a veritable plethora of complaints. I finally said, look, and there were even people, smart people, not dummies, people I know who are smart. I'm not dumb, I'm smart, not like they say. Who were, I never heard of The Weeknd. What's he doing there? Okay. Here's my recommendation. It's the halftime show at the single biggest television show of the year. People have heard of him. The NFL has heard of him. Pepsi, the people who are shelling out the dough, have heard of him too. I'm not saying that you have to love the music. I'm not a big pop guy myself. I'm a rocker. But all the rock bands have done it. The only rock bands left with big popularities would be the Foo Fighters and Pearl Jam. And my guess is at least the Foo Fighters, who have an album to promote right now, maybe they were approached and said no. And is Pearl Jam too much of a niche? And we're not ready for Greta Van Vliet yet. Or Van Fleet. I'm thinking of the basketball player. Anyway, sorry. You're not, the Who did it. The Stones did it. U2 did it. McCartney did it. Springsteen did it. Petty did it. Prince did it. And some of those people aren't with us anymore. AC/DC, hey, that wouldn't have been bad. Maybe they were approached. Maybe they didn't want to do it. But it's pretty obvious that the trend is going younger. And that bothers some of you. Just imagine if Super Bowl I's halftime, instead of it being, I believe it was the Grambling Band, the Fabulous Outfit, they were the entertainment for halftime for Super Bowl I. What if the Beatles had popped up? How many people, had there been a Facebook, had gone, oh, who are these guys? Look at their hair. What is that noise? Oh, I can't stand this. Worst halftime show ever. Of course, that would have been Super Bowl I. Wouldn't have been much else to go on. You know that would have happened. So we have become our mom and dad, whether you like to admit it or not. So I've decided, and I'm guilty of this, by the way. I looked in the mirror and said, you know what? I kind of do this too. So I'm not going to do it anymore. If I don't know what something is or who someone is, I'm going to look them up. And with these handheld computers, it takes no time at all to get the information you don't have. And I guarantee you, you look up a score, Hey, what happened with that Heat game? Oh, hang on. I got it right here. Boop, 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 boop. And you got it right here. So you could have looked up the weekend had you chosen to instead of just complaining about it. Now, whether you like the show or not, that's your business. I thought it was all right. And I didn't really realize he had more hits than I was familiar with. I didn't even know that he did I Can't Find My Face or I Can't Feel My, okay, he did. So, and I like the visual aspects of it. It's fine. Killed some good time. I wasn't going to watch last year with J-Lo and Shakira, but I watched it. I was entertained. Open up a little bit. That's all I'm asking. Just open up a little bit. Saturday Night Live. I wanted to watch because of Dan Levy and Schitt's Creek. I never heard of Phoebe Bridgers, so I looked her up. Pretty successful. And I haven't seen the whole show yet because I'm old and fell asleep. But I did see the first song and I thought it was all right. It's okay to open your minds to new things. And I've got some really terrible news for all of us. All these classic rock artists that we like are going to die soon. It sucks to realize this. They're all in their 70s. Okay? All of them. Except the Foo Fighters, who aren't truly classic rock, but, they have that vibe. And Pearl Jam. That's about it that I can think of. I'm sure I'm leaving somebody out. But Aerosmith isn't young. The Stones, certainly not. Guys in the Who, Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young, who, by the way, all hate each other, so they're never going to play again. All of that. Pink Floyd has two guys who can't stand each other, so that's never going to happen. We're never going to have a Led Zeppelin reunion. We had one, but that's not going to happen. So you're just going to have to understand that the classic rock band era for the Super Bowl halftime is likely over. And that they're going younger. Now, the great irony is, that I remember I forgot where I was, at a seminar of some kind, where somebody came in and said, the approach of going younger with ads is really a mistake because it's the older people who have the money. I'm not so sure about that anymore. So that's where we're going with this. Now, you can, as I put on somebody else's page today, you can keep up or try to keep up, at least up to a point, or choke on the dust while you're left behind. And I've decided I don't want to choke on the dust. I'm going to at least make a cursory effort to learn more about these other artists that out of curiosity. And then I can decide, you know what? That's not for me. Or I can go, hey, I liked that. That was pretty good. I was entertained. It seems like but I have to admit, after a while, this sucked. I just, it gets frustrating. It really is. It's brutally frustrating. So if you didn't like the show, that's fine. I said, scale of 10, I think I gave it a 6. Because I really thought visually it was striking. I mean, there were some really cool effects in there. Liked it. Music was okay. Am I going across the street if the weekend is playing at my neighbor's over there? Probably not. But at least I took the time to find out. We good? All right. Hey, and by the way, fellow old people, we had Bruce Springsteen, who probably made some people mad because it was a little bit politically tinged. That counts, right? Come on. One of us. We had that. We had Wayne's World, throwback from 30 years ago. How many people, younger people, had to have that one explained to them like they have to explain The Weeknd to us? How many years ago? Was it the 60s that they coined the term generation gap? Which still exists. So just take a minute. That's all. Just take a minute. And if you start typing you're old, then you are. Remember, it's better to look good than to feel good, speaking of old sayings. So if you start convincing your brain that you're old, your brain is going to go right along with it. Go, hey, you're right. We're old. We're going to be miserable now. Old man yells at cloud. Famous headline from The Simpsons. Don't be Abe Simpson. Don't be scared. It won't hurt you. All right. That's enough of that lecture. Now, the game. I mentioned that I'll talk and get Ray Bentley's perspective on it later this week. Again, he had if you're just tuning in wondering where Ray went or never, could not make it, he just called me as I was pulling in the driveway and said he couldn't do it on his phone, and I didn't want him to do it on his phone. So we're going to do a show together, a special show tomorrow or Wednesday. Listen, this guy played in 2 Super Bowls. He's a champion back in the old U.S. Football League with the Michigan Panthers, and above all, he's a dear friend. So I do want to hear what he has to say. But a few things about the game. And just texting back and forth with some friends last night. Yes, I agree with all of you who think the officiating in the first half was not perfect. I don't think it was as bad as some of you think. And please don't come at me with your conspiracy theories about protecting Tom Brady when it's the same NFL that suspended him for 4 games for essentially breaking his telephone over the stupid deflate issue, which I will not use the name because it's only one gate, and that's Watergate. Okay, good. Got that cleared up. So don't tell me they're out to protect him, please. But there were a couple calls I didn't like. The worst one was the one that put the ball on Tyrann Mathieu, that put the ball at the 1-yard line, where the Patriots then threw the little slant pass to Antonio Brown, which looked suspiciously like the play that Seattle tried to call from the 1-yard line that didn't work, and New England intercepted it. It had a little bit of that vibe to it, only this time it worked beautifully. The other one was a holding call earlier in the game where it really was nowhere near the ball. Now, I am an expert in complaining about officiating. I'm good at it. As a broadcaster, I'm not too good at it because it just sounds dopey on the air, and I've done it sometimes to the extreme, and I vowed not to do that again. As a fan, I do complain about it, and one of the things I don't like is I don't like whistles, and this is more in basketball than it is in football, that don't really affect the game. If somebody gains an advantage, you throw a flag or you blow a whistle. And that one holding call, which was away from the play, was it a hold? Yeah. Did it affect the play? No. If anything, you go up to the player and say, hey, I could have flagged you for that. Don't do it again. And a good official is a good communicator. The best basketball officials, and when I'm doing a game, I'm sitting courtside, so I'm right there. The best basketball officials communicate well. They talk to the players. You don't often see it. But a good official will say, hey, don't do that again. Or I saw that and let it, it wasn't going to affect the play, but here's what you should do, or just don't do that. Or even in the, my son, when he played center at Western Michigan, would say that he would get a warning sometimes about physical play. He played the old style of the, right with the elbow and the back and all this other stuff. They would say, hey, give him room next time. Next time that's going to happen, it's a foul. That's good officiating to me. Not a single person watched that Super Bowl last night to watch the officiating crew other than their families. So, yes, they dominated. Did he line up offsides on that punt? Yeah, they did. That would be an advantage. So you throw a flag there. The tripping call, the pass interference on the long pass near the end of the first half, that was a foul. Sorry, it was. Was the pass uncatchable? How can we tell if the receiver has fallen down because somebody fell over their foot? It wasn't an intentional interference, but it was interference. So it's got to count. That one you throw the flag because that affected the play. Now, that's how I view it. There was a high number of defensive holding penalties on Kansas City. Was that because they have a reputation? Tony Romo and Jim Nantz hinted that on the broadcast. I think Romo said they're known for holding. So when the officials get together, do they go, hey, we got to watch Kansas City. They hold a lot in the secondary. Could have been on their minds. That was an aggressive amount of holding penalties. But 2 of them I thought were unnecessary. Still, I didn't see any problem with the secondary holding when Leonard Fournette is going untouched for 26 yards for a touchdown in the second half. Second half. And Brady hitting 80% of his passes in the first half. And he didn't have to throw the ball deep. And you know what? Probably didn't have the time. He threw it a few times deep. He was efficient. He made no mistakes. Okay? They got some pressure on him. They got pressured, but the amount of pressures between Brady and Patrick Mahomes is alarming. They ran the ball fairly well. Ronald Jones was an asset. 3 carries, 28 yards, his first 3 carries. This was a guy who was just, waiting in the pen to get out. The guy was just, he had been injured. And one of the things I loved about both Fournette and Jones is when they ran the ball, they ran it to run you over. They were not passive. They were aggressive. And I really liked that. They hit the defender as the defender hit them. The Walter Payton method of running. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that was, the Chiefs could not get a run game going other than Pat Mahomes, at least early. And yes, the betting tendencies, when we talked to Defo and Luby on Friday, we talked about the betting tendencies, and it was starting to kind of go this way toward Tampa. And sure enough, I found out the betting line had gone back down to 3. Which means the action was coming in on Tampa. Turns out they knew what they were talking about. So very, very wise, very, very wise, those guys in the desert. Moment, I have an issue that I must address. Done. A quick aside about how this show is produced. I'm in my house, as you can tell. We have 3 animals in the home right now, a dog and 2 cats who are living with us, I believe, temporarily. One of them has now been meowing since the beginning of the program. Either he or she hates the show or could be in a bit of trouble. So that got to me after a while, and we try our best to keep the animals out of the show, but one of them is raising all kinds of hell, and we need to do something about that. So apologies for the brief distraction, but just to be on the safe side. Now, let's get back to business about this football game. Mistakes, not many for Tampa. And for Kansas City, 3 offensive linemen not being available, 3 starters, good ones, especially Eric Fisher. And you're dead. And that's what happened. And it started early, and it never ended. And Pat Mahomes did the best he could. But as the game went on, it was pretty darn obvious that this offense was not the same. First off, and this is something I will definitely talk about with Ray, the lack of deep passes for Kansas City in a regular where Mahomes could stand in the pocket and go option, option, option. Here's my option. Or even if he rolled, I thought I would see a lot of rolling pocket to the right, because the guy has every throw in the book, including some that hadn't even been invented yet, and he could just take his chances from there. But Todd Bowles, the defensive coordinator, had a great game, and most importantly, his players had a great game. A few people were posting, oh, Todd Bowles is the MVP. No, he's not. Todd Bowles coached and didn't play. Was he the MVC if they gave out a Coach of the Game award? Yeah. I'd call that in a heartbeat. His vision was beautifully executed by his players. You can make great calls if you're a coordinator, and if somebody looks the wrong way or doesn't block somebody, then that great call you make goes right down the tubes. But the Tampa players executed very well what was a solid game plan, and one of the things is, well, we got a guy with half of an offensive line, let's pound him. That's football. And that's exactly what they did. So all of a sudden, Tyreek Hill, who had 7,000 yards in Week 12 against Tampa Bay, didn't even get to 100. He was no factor. Travis Kelce was just sort of a bailout option instead of a real threat. He put up some numbers, but so what? The running game, stuffed. Tampa's defenders get to the ball quickly, and as pointed out by a friend of mine in the text, they actually tackle. Pardon me. Yeah, tackling we don't see as much anymore because for safety issues, people just don't work on it. College coaches would tell me that all the time. Yeah, our tackling's a little sloppy. We don't hit as much in practice because we can't afford to get guys hurt. So that philosophy is carried off to the NFL. So it was, I get it. But Tampa's defense tackles. It was great. So I was thoroughly impressed. Is it possible that the Washington football team with Taylor Heineke gave them the best game in the playoffs? They did. At least they were competitive. But I'll tell you this about Mahomes, and this is don't sleep on this guy. Don't all of a sudden think that, he sucks, okay? Because that would be a giant mistake on your part. Be the dumbest thing you've done all day or did yesterday. All right? Did you see, I would say that he threw one of the greatest passes I will ever see in my life, and it was incomplete and should have been caught. You know the one I'm talking about? It looked like Tecmo Bowl Bo Jackson, only in reverse, where he cuts here, runs around that guy, runs back, and finally, as he's being tackled, whips a heater from 30 yards out that hits his teammate in the face. I didn't play football with pads on, but I do know that your hands is the preferred destination for a football, not your face mask. And I'm sure that ball was a howitzer. How about you put your hands here? You want to know why Rob Gronkowski is such a great player? How often have you seen Rob Gronkowski? By the way, for my friend who just said hi, is a Buffalo area boy. How many catches does Rob Gronkowski make off of here, off his body, or down here? Very few. You know where he catches them? Here, with his hands, like you're supposed to. For those of you who remember my radio days, Jimmy Cephalo, who played in the Super Bowl for the Dolphins, was a very good player at Penn State, taught me that. He said, good receivers catch the ball with their hands first. Jimmy was a radio partner of mine back in my WQAM days, and we were actually the first sports morning show in South Florida. So I've been looking for that for a long time. I look at the receivers who catch the ball with their hands, and Gronk is a master at that. And yeah, he looks like he's got above average hands, but he's an above average size guy. But my man here who let it go off the face mask. Now, by that point in the game, if he catches it, maybe gets stopped at the 1 yard line or falls in the end zone, I don't think it would change the outcome of the game. But that throw, go back and look at that play. Because that was probably the best play of the night, and it was an incomplete pass. Pat Mahomes is a flipping stud. Yeah, he had a tough time. I'm surprised he didn't die on the field of a heart attack trying to save his own life in that game. Do not judge him on that game. Okay? Because that would be, I think, a mistake. I think I've made that fairly obvious. No, Kansas City was completely screwed by their injuries. Yeah, and they had some bad calls. But you know what? Bad calls happen in every game. Wait till Major League Baseball season starts. There are literally Twitter feeds devoted to showing nothing but blown umpire calls. And every baseball season, everybody always shows a highlight of an umpire either failing to call a pitch that's right down the pipe, or there's a pitch that's this far outside, all the way over here, and he calls it a strike. You have to live with those things. And by the way, as a guy who spent my son's formative years yelling at referees all over the country, guess what? I didn't change one call. I had to learn that the hard way. And that sounds so simple. So Kansas City lost their poise. And they lost their concentration. Can you find a worse place in professional football to lose your concentration than the Super Bowl? So if you want to blame the officials, you can do that because, as I mentioned, those calls were okay, but Kansas City handled it as poorly as you can handle it. Nobody needed a halftime break, a long halftime break, more than the Chiefs did in that game. And they come out and they only get a field goal, and then you get the Fournette run, and you're like, uh-oh. The best team in the regular season doesn't win the Super Bowl. It's happened many times. To my Washington football team back when they were known by the other name. They beat the Dolphins in the Super Bowl at the 82 season, the strike-shortened season. They come out and they smoke everybody the following regular season. They scored on their first drive just about every game. They had this huge offense. They passed the ball well. They had in his prime John Riggins, had a good defense, and they play the Raiders in the Super Bowl and get lit up by Oakland. I think they were Oakland then. Maybe they were it doesn't matter. Marcus Allen had a huge day. It happens that the best team doesn't win the Super Bowl. The best regular season team doesn't win the Super Bowl. Kansas City was the best team in the regular season. But when it matters most. Now, the other part of this game that's driving everybody either flush with joy or insane with jealous anger is Tom Brady. There are people complaining he should have been the MVP. He did throw 3 touchdown passes. While he only 200 yards, he made no mistakes. How about Brady Gronk twice? After Gronk had a pretty quiet playoffs, but you knew when it came to time, that special time of the day, you knew what Brady was going to do. We all did. And he did it. And even Gronk's blocking. That's why this guy's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Not just because of how important he became as a receiver, but that guy's a hell of a blocker. He is a complete football player. So Brady now has more rings than any franchise. And as I also posted last night, would you have liked to have listened? In fact, you can do it now. Once we're finished, of course. Please stay with me. Flip on your random Boston sports talk station. Can you imagine that the guy who was the architect, Bill Belichick, of the 6 Super Bowl championships is now thought of as an incompetent, bumbling idiot because they didn't keep Brady. Now, with the Patriots as they were, would they have gone 7-9 with Brady over Cam Newton? No. Would they have won a Super Bowl? No. They would not have. Average defense and no weapons on offense to think of. Barely a running game. And Brady's great, but he couldn't elevate that team. That happened last year to them. He saw the handwriting on the wall, and when he didn't get the deal he wanted, it was a perfect opportunity for him to split. He had a team that paid him what he wanted and gave him weapons. And then he gets Gronk to come out of retirement. And then he tells Tampa Bay, hey, Antonio Brown's free. Go get him. And they do. And Antonio Brown didn't even have that much of an impact when he was there, but Brady wanted him there, and the Bucs, I think, will listen to him. So if anybody now still wants to debate whether Tom Brady is the best quarterback of all time, you go do it on your own. Don't involve me in it. As Kevin Garnett would say to you, get that shit out of here. Pardon my language. That debate was over probably after 5 when he passed the several that had won 4. And if we have now made winning championships the only standard of quarterbacking, then somebody is going to have to win 8 to surpass this guy. Maybe it will be Mahomes. Maybe it's somebody who's 9 years old running around right now on a field in Kentucky someplace, and we don't even know who he is yet. 8. That's like the greatest record in baseball, of which there are many. Johnny Vandermeer, back-to-back no-hitters. The only way you're going to beat Johnny Vandermeer's record is to throw 3 straight no-hitters. You're not going to do that. I suppose somebody could win 8 Super Bowls, assuming Brady doesn't win another one because he says he's not retiring. And I mention it again. I like Brady. I like him because he's a hard ass. He has every luxury at his fingertips he could want, or he could get it if he wanted it. And he still shows up the crack of dawn or before to study, to lift. He still takes care of himself with this bland a diet of blah that Puts rings on your finger, though. I couldn't eat that way. Most of us can't. He's willing to put his body at risk, even though he knows how to protect himself. Still, he's one, vicious hit away. And he's still doing it, and he's winning. 70% rate in Super Bowls. Yes, I know. Others have higher percentages. That's, 1 for 1 or 4 for 4. Bradshaw never lost. I get it. Bart Starr was 2 for 2. I understand. All good. But in an era where you have salary caps, all this transition, free agency, more teams, longer travel, more games, somebody's going to have to get 8. Hell, it might be him. So debate's over. Sorry, we have to move on to something else. You can do the Brady-Belichick one if you want. I'm not really interested in that because they both deserve credit for those Super Bowls. They both do. Belichick put the players out there for Brady. Lately, offensively, Belichick has not done a good job, and that's why the Patriots were 7-9. And they had a lot of COVID opt-outs. That certainly hurt. So Brady's just going to do what he does, being Tom Brady. It's a nice job. The game was a disappointment. I don't know why I wasn't that bothered by the game. I'm not saying I thought it was the greatest game of all time, and we were about to go walk the dog, and then let's just stay to the end and, see the hugs and the handshakes and all of that. I didn't watch the trophy or any of the other stuff. But I don't know. I didn't find the game that terrible. I was interested in it. I wanted to see, and the stuff that Mahomes was doing just to try to throw an incompletion was off the charts. And the guy who was playing with a bad toe. And I poo-pooed the bad toe in the Buffalo game. But apparently, whatever shot they gave him at some point in that game wore off. And hopefully he'll be able to get that taken care of in the offseason, which I'm sure for Pat Mahomes is priority 1. And look, we have every reason to believe they're the favorite to make it back next year. Until something happens that doesn't. Now, the injuries to the O-linemen, depending on how serious they all are, I mean, one was an Achilles, one was a bad back, don't forget, they had a very good offensive lineman who opted out, the doctor, to be a physician in Canada during this COVID time. So if he decides to come back and he's in good shape, they could have a nice offensive line next year. And they could still be great. So, no more conversation. And by the way, one more thing I got into a debate too on Twitter, and it was a friendly debate. The term GOAT. I may have discussed this with you all already, so forgive me for a quick history lesson. The GOAT is the acronym for greatest of all time. And that was initially applied to only one man. The man who used to call himself the greatest of all time, Muhammad Ali. And eventually it was shortened to GOAT as a way, almost like a Secret Service nickname for the president. We don't know what those are. I think they eventually get revealed after the president leaves office. But the Secret Service has a nickname, so they could say, hey, get microphone out of here. We gotta move. And whatever his nickname is, and that's the code for the Secret Service to get the president out of wherever they are. Well, they started using it for Ali. It was his photographer, the late Howard Bingham, who came up with that. And they would say, all right, we got to get the GOAT out of here. We're late. And Ali, of course, I've been in a room with Ali. Everybody wants a piece of Muhammad Ali or wanted a piece of Muhammad Ali. And he was thoroughly accommodating. He didn't say no to anyone. A picture here, an autograph there, all of that stuff. So they had lives to live. So they would escort Ali. Let's get the GOAT out of here. All right, come on, let's go. And they would finally, Ali would leave the room. So now it's been co-opted to talk about the GOAT in basketball, the GOAT in baseball, the GOAT in hockey, the GOAT in golf, the GOAT in surfing, whatever. And it's almost too much. It's, as I said on Twitter, it's here a GOAT, there a GOAT, everywhere a GOAT. Have we used it too much? Is it overused, or am I just going back to what I started with on this little program, a little cranky? I would prefer it only be called Ali. Leave it for Muhammad. But it's a small thing. And now I'm seeing other records come up on the chat room here. Jack's 18 majors. Tiger got close, but he won't get there. DiMaggio's hitting streak, 56. We've gotten, into the 40s? That ain't bad. And so on. The 500 wins for Cy Young. Cal Ripken's consecutive game streak. There's a bunch of these. We could do a whole show on those, and it would be fascinating. So I'm going to wrap it up. Again, if you apologize on Ray's behalf, he had a scheduling issue come up, and I'm going to reach out to him later today, and we're going to either do something on Tuesday or Wednesday. And we'll get his thoughts on the game, and I'm sure he'll offer up some much more in-depth ideas than I had. But some of the things I learned from football came from him. So I probably will, came up with a few things that he thought of as well. So in general, the commercials were pretty good. I liked the one for State Farm with Aaron Rodgers and Drake and Jake and Paul Rudd. Even a callback to an old State Farm commercial. I thought that was good. The one with the Manning, all the different people in it with the was a chip commercial, right? With the Mannings and all that. Thought that was really great. Liked the Will Ferrell one. Wayne's World was always kind of fun for me. I guess Paramount had one with Sir Patrick Stewart there at the top of the mountain. How do you not love Sir Patrick Stewart? Come on now. Might be the coolest guy on the planet. Really. So all of that. And then I'm sure there was a couple of others that I thought were good. I didn't even know. There was the one that had all the different athletes in it. Alex Morgan and Serena Williams and Peyton Manning and a few others. I didn't even know what that was for until I watched it again. It was a Mick Ultra commercial. Didn't even know. I actually thought it was a Nike ad. And by the way, so Budweiser wasn't advertising this year, but Anheuser-Busch spent some money. Then we look at it now, it's like a bogus story. Supposedly, making a big statement about Budweiser's not advertising. Well, no, but yes. Come on, man. If you really want to pull your ads, pull them all. At $5.5 million for 30 seconds, I hope they all got their money's worth. And I hope you got your money's worth too, although this show doesn't cost anything. It costs nothing to subscribe on YouTube. I'm on Twitter at DaveLaMont1. Could always use more followers in both. And by the way, anybody want to sponsor this program? Boy, would that be nice. Hit me up if you think we can work together. I make a little. Hopefully you make a little. Everybody walks away happy. Thank you very much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed yesterday's day. Some of you didn't, apparently, from what I'm reading. But I thought it was a fun day. I had a good time. And next year, let's hope we can all go to somebody's home or go to a nice place and watch the game and watch it with big crowds of people and not have to worry about anything. Until, I say Tuesday or Wednesday, watch this space. I'll try to update you on that. I'll have Ray in here. And Friday, I'm going to talk to somebody who's actually there, a Dolphins super fan, and get his point of view on all of that. And I look forward to that very much. Take care, stay safe, and I'll talk to you again. Thank you so much.